In 2008, Tesla and SpaceX were weeks away from bankruptcy. These days, Tesla is a trillion-dollar company that is worth more than Toyota, Volkswagen, and Mercedes combined. And SpaceX revolutionized the aerospace industry and is now worth more than $200 billion. This video is about a systematic way of thinking that Elon Musk used to transform failing startups into world-changing companies. The good news is that anyone can learn how to think like him and achieve incredible success in business. The bad news is that not many people go beyond surface level habits like sleeping in the factory floor or working 100 hours per week. In my work with elite performers for the past decade, I have seen firsthand how embodying these principles can change the trajectory of any business, to the point that I have created a framework called the TAPES framework that will teach you how to think like Elon Musk and other billionaires. And everything starts by actually learning how to think. Step one is to learning how to think like a billionaire. And there's in essence two core skills in billionaire thinking. The first one is called system thinking. It's understanding everything as a system, as a cause relationship network in which any outcome that we seek is just downstream of a set of causes that we have to find and tweak to get the outcome that we want. Average performers typically do not see the world as a collection of systems. They see the world as a collection of random events, as disconnected parts that have no relationship whatsoever. So they fail to influence the system of their life to their own liking. Like for instance, they fail to see how a marketing system affects the sales system, and they cannot understand how working on the marketing and strengthening the marketing enough will eventually make sales much easier, and vice versa. The world is systematic, and billionaires understand that systems thinking is at the core of designing the world as we want it to be. So system thinking is core skill number one. Core skill number two is first principles thinking. First principle thinking is building the systems from the ground up, from the root causes, from the raw truth, without falling for any assumption, without falling into the trap of believing what we want to believe instead of what is actually true. And a good example of systems thinking in action would be when Model S production was stuck at 2,000 cars per week. Tesla executives suggested that they had to hire more people in order to produce more cars. But Elon Musk mapped the production system systematically and found a specific piece called the Flowerbot that was slowing down the production. As soon as he removed that Flowerbot, the production instantly doubled. So this is how you can use systems thinking to get better outcomes. Whatever it is that you are willing to achieve, the outcome that you're optimizing your life for, there's a system for that. And billionaires always think about the system they need to build to get the outcome they want. Average performers only think about the outcome, and they're typically clueless about how to actually get there. So step one is to learn how to think like a billionaire. Step number two is learn to aspire, to dream like a billionaire. Because I see this very often. Average entrepreneurs don't set their goals high enough, so they're never pulled forward by that vision. Elite performers of any kind are always pulled forward. They're pulled forward by the possibility of winning a gold medal at the Olympics, the possibility of having a concert in Madison Square Garden, the possibility of making humanity a space species. No matter what is their domain, elite performers are constantly pulled forward towards the vision, which implies living behind the smart goal-setting framework, setting goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, and instead design stretch goals that sit outside of our current abilities, that fire ourselves up on top of providing the right direction. You have to aspire to dream big enough so that you can actually be motivated by the future. If you have no motivation for what you're building, if what you're building is not meaningful enough for you, why would you even care? So step number two is to learn to aspire like a billionaire. Step number three is how to prioritize like a billionaire. Back to the systems thinking. If we are working under the assumption that everything is a system, we are typically bound by the limits of that system and the constraints within that system. So anything that we do outside of the constraint, outside of the bottleneck, is a waste of time. So if we're trying again to grow the business and get more sales, and we realize that we have a sales conversion problem, in other words, we are not good enough at selling, anything else that we do outside of actually fixing the closing problem would be a waste of time. You can have an unlimited amount of leads, but if you cannot close, you're not going to move the needle forward. So prioritizing like a billionaire, it actually implies going and fixing the thing that needs fixing. For example, early in their journey, SpaceX realized that the number one driver of cost in rocket was the fact that it could not be reusable. So they focused all of their energy in creating a reusable rocket system that could make their rocket launches 10 times less expensive. So once they identified what the stretch goal was, make it 10 times less expensive, they understood that the number one bottleneck in order to get to that goal was precisely making the rockets reusable. And that is what they focused on. Which leads me to idea number 4, how to execute. See, execution is an art because you need to be good at focusing on the bottleneck and solving it for good, but at the same time, not waste too much time that you fall for the trap of perfectionism. You gotta find the perfect Goldilocks space in which you are moving as fast as you can without wasting time. And Musk typically discusses the need for moving as fast as possible and learning from failure. See, failure, contrary to popular belief, is actually a good thing because it signals the way. We only can get better if we get feedback from the things that we are doing. And typically the most useful feedback comes from the biggest fuck-ups. Just like Musk was about to go bankrupt on SpaceX after their third payload launch had failed in 2008, it was only thanks to everything that they have learned the previous 3 launches that they were able to successfully pull off the final launch and eventually saving the company. So tenet number 4 is to execute as fast as humanly possible and don't neglect the power of feedback loop. Just as Tesla can send over-the-air updates to improve tiny bits of their operating system that quickly compound to huge improvements, you can do the same by asking yourself at the end of every day, what did I learn today? How can I improve tomorrow? What is the mistake I'm not going to repeat going forward? If you get into the habit of learning from your mistakes and also your successes every single day, over time, you're going to become an absolute machine at getting better, which is exactly what we want. And finally, the final point, probably the most important, is how to persevere, how to sustain, how to continue until successful. Musk has this quote saying that he has the mindset of a samurai. He'd rather commit seppuku than to quit. Seppuku is the ritual suicide that samurai will do when they lost a battle. And Elon Musk has the same principle. The goal is to get things done no matter what, and if something is important enough, it is worth doing until successful. And it is also a core characteristic of elite entrepreneurs and Musk is push until you get it, because in the end, you would always achieve your goals. It's a matter of sufficient iteration along the same system. At some point, humans will be walking on Mars. We don't know exactly when, we don't know exactly how, but we know there's a way to get there. And it is just a matter of time. The people in SpaceX and NASA and everyone that is working on it eventually figures it out. But it all hinges on the ability to persevere. And there's one core skill that I've read in quite a few billionaire biographies, Michael Dell's comes to mind, that is called emotional compartmentalization. Elon Musk calls it CPU optimization, which is in essence the ability to segment your brain and don't have conflicting emotion at the same time. Michael Dell also talks about this. When things are going bad in the personal life, you must be able to compartmentalize that emotion and not let that affect your professional life and vice versa. And there you have it. This is a tapes protocol, how to think, aspire, prioritize, execute, and sustain like a billionaire, like an elite entrepreneur. Anyone can do this. This is not about working 100 hours per week or sleeping on the factory floor. It's about knowing that everything is a system, prioritizing the right bottleneck, focusing on that bottleneck until it is solved, iterating as fast as humanly possible, and persevering until successful. Never accepting failure as an outcome of a system that we control. Because if we control the system and we can iterate fast enough, we will get the results we want. If you want to learn to think like an elite entrepreneur and really optimize every single part of your being, check this video here where I go deep into what is an elite performer and how to become one as fast as possible. And if you want to help, book a call with us. We'll run a full analysis of your current performance spectrum and give you a personalized roadmap that you can use today to reach the next level. See you in the car.